Now, contrary to popular belief, there is one group even more vocal and outspoken and urgently getting in your face than vegans, and that is the anti-vegan crowd. I actually can't remember the last time a vegan got preciously in my face about their choices, but I've lost count of how many times someone has made a comment about how much they enjoy offending vegans or being a meat eater and proud, or I love vegetarians, especially cooked medium rare and that sort of thing. You know, I'm not talking about like fringy, weirdly weird influencers, and that's a whole other. I'm talking about just everyday people that I run into and know. Now, I'm not vegan, so I don't have any skin in the game. No pun intended. But it is a fact, people who try to go out of their way to offend vegans are much louder than vegans. I'm just saying it's ironic that the loudest people in the room are the ones complaining about how loud the vegans are. The people complaining about the loud vegans are actually the loud ones. Oh, the ironing. But what even is a vegan anyway? Well, some people will tell you that it's a person who doesn't eat any animal products whatsoever, not even honey. Others say that it goes beyond diet and is actually a life philosophy that aims to never press any animal into the service of humans. So, in addition to no animal products as food, they also eschew leather or draft animals or animal testing of any kind or certain kinds of inks and magic markers and stuff. And for them, it's more of a philosophy than a diet. Now, plant-based, on the other hand, does reference food choices and can mean different things. Some people use it to connote a vegan diet, but for many, it can simply mean a diet that is mostly plants, but has some room for a little flexibility, although some people prefer to use the term flexitarian. And then there are some who eat mostly plants, but allow for dairy and eggs. Some of those call themselves lacto-ovo-vegetarians, while others just say vegetarian. And then there are some people who still eat seafood who call themselves pescatarians. Another way to put that is that they don't eat anything that has lungs. And then there's another group still who's willing to eat poultry, but not mammal flesh, aka red meat. And those people usually describe themselves cryptically as, I don't eat red meat. Now, if you're a person who likes to be precise with your words, which I try to be, you might take slight exception to the fact that all these people have no restriction against mushrooms, which are not plants at all. They're funguses, or fungi, or fungi, or fugi, or fugia, or funguses, or fugia. Oh, no wonder nobody wants to talk about them. But the funny thing about mushrooms, though, is that they are genetically closer to animals than they are to plants. Their protein structure is more similar to animal protein than plant protein. They may even have some degree of consciousness that's more like ours, too. So some of the smallest living things and the very largest living things on Earth are both funguses. They really are incredible, and one of these days I'll do a whole video on them, but for now, I'm just going down a rabbit hole, a mildewy, fungusy rabbit hole, a mildewy, fungusy, psychedelically, weirdly consciousy rabbit hole, but that's all for another day. But first I have to figure out how to pronounce the word. But anyway, the point is just that there aren't legal definitions for any of these words, and it's weird how people love to dunk on vegans for some reason. Nobody talks about how annoying people on paleo are. Well, except maybe for me, but we've already been over that. The fact is that there are a lot of studies, good solid studies and randomized control trials and meta-analyses and data that suggest that a plant-based or even a full-on vegan diet might be the healthiest way to eat in terms of anti-aging, preventing cancer and metabolic disorders, including hypertension and obesity. It's weird that people who are looking for a quick fix don't just go vegan when it's probably the easiest and potentially most effective thing out there. But it's not without risk. You've already heard me talk about what I call French fry vegetarians, people who stop eating animal products but still eat a lot of junk food. Now, make no mistake, nutritional deficiencies are probably the biggest risk to going vegan, but here's the thing. It ain't really that hard. You don't even have to match your proteins like we used to think. You just have to get a good variety of healthy foods and keep in mind that a lot of vegan substitute things like vegan cheese and vegan meat substitutes and vegan milks and even vegan snack foods can be nutritionally devoid. You can't just eat French fries and chips and white bread and think that you're going to be healthy because you're not eating meat. You gotta face the fact that meat is nutrient dense. And if you're going to remove it from your diet, then you need to eat real, healthy, whole foods, and you likely need to supplement your diet with B12, which you can't get in sufficient amounts from just plants and funguses. But the point of all those substitute foods is not that they provide the nutrition of animal products. And some of them are very nutritious, but the point is to satisfy your craving for meat and cheese and sausage and eggs and butter and ice cream. Eating faux meats and nut milk is not necessarily bad for you, but don't kid yourself into thinking that nut milk is nutritious. It's actually pretty nutrient sparse, unlike the actual nuts it's made of. The only reason to eat those things is for the fun of it. And if I'm going to be totally honest and precise, the fact is that a lot of those things are highly processed. And if you watch my channel, you know I'm not a fan of ultra-processed anything, vegan or otherwise. No, you get your nutrition from fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, and healthy fats. If you want faux something, then just know that you're eating it for funsies. Now, my take on this is that one of my life principles is that it's better to move toward than away. And this is a great example. Instead of thinking in terms of avoiding meat, it's more useful to think in terms of moving toward healthy plants. Instead of eating something that's trying to apologize for not being meat, celebrate the things that you do eat. Don't try to make your portobellas pass for steak. Just make it a great portobello and enjoy it. Don't move away from meat, move toward plants. Don't disguise a cauliflower, celebrate it. It's delicious and it doesn't need a costume. And that's probably the best way to avoid nutritional deficiencies for a vegan. Enjoy all the wonderful foods you get to eat. My morning smoothie is vegan, but not because I designed it to be. It just so happens to be delicious because the things I put in it are delicious. I love cocoa powder. I love almond butter. I love strawberries. I mean, what's there to miss? And it just so happens to be loaded with healthy fats and fiber and iron and polyphenols and yeah. Now, speaking of iron, women need to be especially careful to make sure to get enough. Sadly, most plant-based iron doesn't absorb as well as animal iron because it lacks heme, so vegan women would be well advised to either take care to get sufficient iron in your diet or to use supplements, and that's all I'm going to say about it because I'm not really qualified to talk about women's health. I'm a foodie and a YouTuber, and there are already way too many foodie YouTubers out there dispensing nutrition advice, and, well, do not trust foodie YouTubers to be the final arbiters of solid nutritional advice. Just make sure you get enough of the right kind of iron, even if you're not vegan, but especially if you are. Another risk with vegan diets is in common with some of the other diets we've covered, which is social isolation. Being a strict vegan can sometimes mean skipping social functions that center around animal foods. Sometimes it can be really hard to find literally anything to eat at a barbecue since even the beans have some pork in them and the corn is slathered in butter. Of course, the trade-off is, little things like lower body fat, lower cholesterol, lower risk of death from heart disease and all-cause mortality, lower A1C, higher metabolism, and the knowledge that your food doesn't come from an inhumane, dirty, confined animal feeding operation, also known as a CAFO. And that's actually a pretty big one. In fact, a lot of people choose veganism primarily for the fact that industrial meat is unspeakably cruel and spews ungodly amounts of pollution into our water, air, and soil. And no kidding here. Animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than all transportation combined. I mean, did you get that? Every plane, train, and automobile put together don't make as much crap in the atmosphere as livestock. In fact, the top 5 livestock corporations release more annual greenhouse gas emissions than ExxonMobil, Shell, or BP. 40% of the greenhouse gases produced by agriculture comes from cattle alone. 60% of commodity corn goes to animal feeding operations. 75% of all antibiotics made go to commercial livestock, which is the primary driving force behind the evolution of superbugs. Regenerative operations, on the other hand, actually sequester impressive amounts of CO2 and build healthy topsoil in the process. I try to support those producers every chance I get. So the bottom line for me is that a vegan diet can potentially be one of the healthiest and most responsible diets you can eat. The mistakes I see people making are nutritional deficiencies due to not getting enough variety of healthy foods, eating too much junk food, and 3, lamenting the things that you can't eat instead of celebrating the things that you do eat. Again, I'm sure that some viewers will say the mistake some vegans make is being preachy or precious or self-important, but I'm not going to list that because it's mostly not true. Like I said, most of the preachy, precious types are the militant meat eaters who like to make fun of vegans. I mean, seriously, take note of that in your everyday life, of how many people go out of their way to tell you that they're vegans versus how many people go out of their way to tell you how much they dislike vegans. It's not even close. One group who seems like they simply cannot abide vegans is the paleo crowd. Now, we already talked about them, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but one time a food guru whom I do really like, by the name of Mark Hyman, was at some kind of panel or symposium, and he was sitting with a paleo person on one side of him and a vegan on the other side, and he noticed that the two of them, despite appearing to be like sworn enemies, agreed on almost everything. The only points they disagreed on were meat, of course, and, get this, beans. Yeah, beans. On paleo, you can't eat beans, and on vegan, you can't eat meat. But other than that, they were mostly on the same page. He pointed this out and suggested that instead of going after each other, maybe what we need to do is to take the best of both diets and come up with a new diet and call it PEGAN. Yeah, PEGAN, I'm sorry, but I've always thought that was a horrible name. But despite the poor choice of a name, it is actually an excellent diet. In fact, it's outstanding, and there's so much I love about the PEGAN diet. It's not really dogmatic. You're invited to sort of customize it for your own health and enjoyment. It emphasizes that sustainability needs to be part of the equation. It recommends low or no ultra-processed foods in favor of whole, real food. It suggests that about 75% of your plate should be vegetables. It suggests that the quality of the ingredients is paramount, so you should be using quality whole foods. As he puts it, food is information, and I couldn't agree more. It recommends low glycemic grains like quinoa, amaranth, black rice, and buckwheat. It suggests healthy fats like those found in nuts, seeds, fish, avocado, and coconut. He recommends that if you want dairy, you should consider sheep or goat. He has devised his own food pyramid that recommends, in order, at the base, non-starchy vegetables, herbs, and spices which you can eat however much as you like. 3 to 5 servings of healthy fats, 4 to 6 ounces of protein or 1 cup of legumes, 1 cup of low glycemic fruits or a half cup of starchy veggies, a half cup to 1 cup of gluten-free grains, and then very sparingly, you can have treats. Now, I really like the non-dogmatic, personalizable flexibility of this diet and his emphasis on sustainability because, just like every other living thing, in order for us to be truly healthy, then our habitat needs to be healthy. If our habitat is dirty, then our food will be dirty. It's a package deal. Now, although I myself don't expressly follow this diet, I've probably read all of his books, which I definitely recommend, and his approach to food is about as close to how I actually do eat as anything else I've seen. So if you're looking for a diet to follow, this is an extremely good one. Now, there's one more diet on my list, the Mediterranean diet, which has been studied and documented, and of all the popular diets, seems to have the most impressive numbers. Now, if the PEGAN diet had as many randomized controlled trials and research devoted to it, I have a feeling that it would be equally impressive, if not more so. But as it stands, the Mediterranean diet currently has provided the best results in terms of health. And it also happens to be delicious. And that's why it's going to be the last diet in my roundup here. And that'll be next week. But for now, it's time to wrap up this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Ciao.